Okay, here's the rig rundown that nobody asked for, but hopefully somebody wants. Maybe somebody can learn something from it or be convinced to try stereo themselves when they may not have otherwise. I'm not doing it totally differently than anyone else might do it, but I do have one cool little trick that I'm doing that, I mean, I'm sure somebody does, but I haven't seen it around a whole lot, certainly not in person. I'm sure there's people out on the internet doing it. Here's the way I do it. I won't be playing in this either because I can't record stereo, and so, it won't really do it justice. This is just about how I have it set up, the rig itself. And I'll be pointing with this beautiful Christmas wrapping paper so that nobody has to see my arms and my slippered feet. So the board is stereo out. It's mono, of course, before the stereo effects. It goes into a patch bay. You can see that cable there coming from my Eastman. And it goes into the EP, into the blues driver, into the POG, back over here, into the volume pedal. Volume pedal then goes mono into the Eventide, and then stereo out of that into the Volante, stereo into the RV6, and stereo into the RV5, and of course, stereo out. I did set the Volante up for left-right ping-ponging because I use it kind of subtly, and so I wanted the kind of fun ping-pong thing to lush it up a little bit. I know a lot of people don't like ping-pong delays because it's just like too much, but for the subtle way I like to use this Volante, I like it. The Eventide goes stereo, just doing it, and I had to do some digging about both the RV5 and RV6 about whether or not they passed true stereo images. Yeah, they have stereo outs. I didn't know if they were dual mono or what, and it seems like what I could find is that they sum to mono internally and then put it out, and I think a lot of stereo effects process that way, unless they have like dual DSPs. I'm not an expert in this stuff, but what I do know is that when I set up a ping pong delay on the Volante and send it through these, it does in fact ping pong back and forth between the two different amps. So whatever it's doing it in the way that I wanted it to. So between panning the Volante and doing some research about those and some testing, those were the only real like hardware hiccups I hit. Well, there was one more, and we'll get to that. So one output of the RV5 goes back to my patch bay and goes out that cable there to amplifier 1. And then the other one I'm just taking out of the other stereo output of the RV5 and taking to amplifier 2. So amplifier 1 is the Orange Super Crush 100. It's my main amp. I love it. I mostly play it clean, so Orange fans are getting upset as we speak. And then amplifier 2 is actually, if you can see it a little better, is the Quilter Super Block US. I also love that, and for a while that was my main amp into a cabinet or going direct at a venue. I love it. I've got other amps, but these two are just simple. I don't like worrying about tubes. They sound good enough to my ear, and I love them. Anyway, what I did have to do, maybe I'll just bring this over here for a moment. I was getting a ground loop hum, hiss, weird kind of thing going on. So I got this cheap Pile mini hum eliminator on Amazon. It was about $30, and I've heard they get some tone suck, but I don't really notice it. Maybe a tiny, so like I boosted some treble on both the amps, and it's great. It's silent, it's passive. So that's just between the pedal board input and the Quilter, and it just goes boom, boom, straight into there. That's the power block there for the Quilter on the end, and it all just lives happily on top of the amp. So the fun thing is, I'm actually not using this orange cabinet over here. It's all out of this cabinet here. It's a 2x12 and it's wired individually. So the output for the cab from the Quilter goes to one, and the output from the orange goes into the other one. The fun thing is, when I want to do mono, I can just use the Super Crush, and it has two outputs, and so I can just plug both those outputs into the two speakers and have a 2x12, or run one and have a 1x12, but I like the sound of a 2x12 if I'm in mono. And what I've also found out, I could be wrong, but to my ears, I think I'm right, is that when I unplug this, Oh, you saw my hand and my arm, I'm sorry. Unplug this second one here that's not going to my patch bay, but directly to the amps. When I unplug that, it sums to mono, and I'm not losing delays. There's not delays or modulations going to an empty channel that I'm not hearing. It's all there, and it all sounds right. So I think it's working okay. Now, I haven't tested this all extensively. It's like literally just the last couple days that I've been figuring this out. But at high volume, low volume, it sounds right when I take that out, and it sums to mono. But with as easy as this setup is, and just carrying around that Pedal Train Nano with the quilter on it, I'm not sure that I'll ever try too hard to go into mono again. It sounds so cool having like a Leslie effect, you know, going woo 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 back and forth, and you get a little bit closer to that feeling of the air moving around with a real like Leslie. It's not a real Leslie, of course, but it's good enough to play with. So yeah, that's kind of how I'm doing it. I don't think I left anything out. Again, the hum eliminator was cheap, 30 bucks on Amazon. It works pretty good for what I can hear. I can't speak to its reliability because I actually just put that bit on today. But yeah, I mean, for a cheap cabinet that was, I think I paid $150 for it because it was originally a broken PV Classic 50. I just took the amp chassis out of it and wired up the speakers differently. A $500 solid state Super Crush and a $300 quilter. I mean, that's stereo for under $1,000 in terms of amps and cabinets, which I feel pretty good about. And honestly, those sound good in and of themselves. It's not just because they're stereo and I'm getting that. And, you know, anyways, I'm not here to defend my purchase choices. Just wanted to show anyone who wants to see how I'm doing stereo in my rig, and that I'm very happy with it. So yeah, that's it for now. I guess if anyone is going to try and do this, I guess the important thing, another tip, is make sure that your pedal board and your 2 amps and any other part of your equipment, your rig, is running out of the same power strip and the same outlet. You can see that black and yellow one I've got over there doing that. That's huge. And if you still, for some reason, have ground loop noise, then the mini hum eliminator might be a good idea. There's all kinds of nicer ones. Lely makes a high-end one. You can use like a high-end amp switcher that has that. I don't recommend doing it with a ground lift. That can be dangerous. When I first tested this out, I just did it plugging one into a broken power strip that didn't have a grounding prong, and that got rid of the ground loop. That's how I knew I needed to find a better solution like the mini hum eliminator. Anyway, that's it for now. This is going on far too long. Take care. Happy holidays.